Toll. That maniacal maniac. That dreadful villain. A Rasputin in rags and tatters. Once a great hero, now a poor mad tyrant. But how to best describe him to you? Now, Uncle Arlen built a troika for the well-to-do of the region and was something of a bore when it came to transport. I do wish, however, I had listened more to his dreadful fireside monologues, as it would have been useful for my travails beneath Sannikovland. I have no idea what Uncle Arlen would have made of Toll's sled. It reminded me somewhat of Ded Moroz, although clearly missing the tree. It made me wonder if Sannikovland was directly underneath Veliki Ustchuk. Wouldn't that be a thing? I have never seen such magnificent-looking creatures, each of them bathed in the colors of a rainbow. Even Aunt Agrafina's abnormally large Sibirskaya koshka paled into insignificance, and he once ate an entire goose in one sitting. Given the meager resources available to them, the Miag had to improvise shelters as best they could to protect themselves from the icy wastelands. Thankfully, they didn't seem to feel the cold as we do. Thicker skin, I believe. How Sannikovland ended up beyond the Earth's crust remains a mystery. But the fact it and Toll were miles underground explains why the Satko and others could never find it. Now it is fashionable to claim it melted. Melted? What a preposterous idea. Who ever heard of a whole island melting? My father once met Obruchev in Kazatskaya Banya. He said he was a quite brilliant and charming man with an extraordinarily hairy back. Despite this distraction, my father listened in awe as Obruchev told marvelous tales of his expeditions and discoveries, until it was nearly time for supper and they were both boiled quite pink. I know I shouldn't have, but I just couldn't resist reaching out and touching the glowing delights. Imagine my surprise when instead of a painful sting, the jellyfish had the exact texture of Auntie Marsha's muravennik. It seemed the Kraken must have been pulling ships to their doom for hundreds of years. An entire Spanish galleon. Or so it seemed. In later life, the general retired from the army and dedicated himself to beekeeping, eventually amassing a small herd of just over 2 billion Carpathian bees, a record for Bashkiria. At least, that is what I am led to believe. I must admit, at first, I thought I had discovered Kitzish, or even Atlantis itself. But no, that is entirely another story. I owe my life to that strange diving helmet. Who knows, in other worlds, what magnificent variations of it might exist? On the seafloor, all kinds of wondrous devices could be found, such as the buoys spilled from the hulks of sunk warships, whose light had such a dramatic effect upon the electrical, oceanic flora and fauna. An electrical kraken may sound horrendous, but legend has it that such beasts were tender lovers, whose dedication to their partners lasted for centuries or more. The lost city of Lemuria emerging from the sandstorm is a sight I will never forget. I visited the Manikum Desert whilst stationed at Cosmodrome Baikonur, mainly to escape the dreadful tedium of mopping the floors and emptying the bins. I never did find a good reason why that formed such a large part of my cosmonaut training. Ah, the Lemurian prophecy of Tol's rise and the coming of the man from above. Some might say that the triumph of socialism over impossible odds is as inevitable and ancient as the world itself. I do remember the general remarking that many of my descriptions of the fabulous architectures of the interior resembled famous Soviet landmarks. What can I say to this? Except it is perhaps to be expected that the wonders of our internationalist project are timeless indeed. On family holidays to Yagri Islands, and when he was safe to be allowed out in public, Cousin Pavel would frequently astound us with his enormous sandcastles. One was even large enough to house a small family, although often the family in question protested quite strongly about it. I have made many furtive scribblings in my secret notebook since my return, trying to make sense of my adventures. Perhaps the most enigmatic page is simply entitled Tower and Lever. Whatever can it all mean? Had Toll not been so utterly demented, his genius and flair for invention and engineering would have made him a powerful asset to Kosmicheskaya Programa SSSR. Unfortunate, then, that his isolation had rendered him a gibbering loon. As a child, my toy maker parents gifted me with a small flute and drum that became my closest friends during the lonely hours of my childhood. Ah, Maya Malinkaya Fleta I Baraban. I noted that if you placed sand on the drum skin and played the flute nearby, the grains would shift and move. Perhaps the same principle lay at the heart of those wonderful musical crystals of Lemuria.